Okay, this shir is going to be in regard to dogs. What's the mila? There is none. And what's the chisaron of having a person, a from Jew, having a dog? So we know, Chazal tell us this Gemara that says, "La'olam la yachzik adam kelev b'teich beisai." A person should not have a dog inside his house. When the Rambam brings down the halacha, he says, "La'olam la yachzik adam kelev ra b'teich beisai." A person should not have a bad dog in his house. So the Mefarshim on the spot say that the pshat is that every dog is b'cheskas ra. That even that cute little furry poodle puppy is considered ra. Now, I expect a lot of people will be upset to hear that. Why is it considered ra? And what does it have to do with the parshiyos that we're learning these days? And what does it have to do with Kolos Mitzrayim? As we know, it says in the pasuk like Yechratz Kelev L'Shainai that the dogs kept quiet. So the dogs had a schus, that they didn't bark when Klal Yisrael was leaving. So to understand the what it is about the dogs, that's really not good. So there is a thing that the Zayar brings and other Mefarshim bring that's called klipas klavim. Because as we know, there is a thing that's called a klipa. A klipa is something that is surrounding you in a bad way. It has a bad hashpah on you. It has a bad influence on you. Maral says, in Siva Salem, why is a dog considered bad? Everybody says a dog is man's best friend. Well, how can you say that it's bad? A dog is the most wonderful pet possible. People are in love with their dogs. When the dogs die, they cry bitter tears, and they have a pet cemetery, and they spend all kinds of money on burying their dogs. And people absolutely fall in love with their dogs. Says the Maharal, the reason why a dog became man's best friend because the dog represents the ultimate in prikasoil, in saying, Hashem, I don't want you on me. You're not my boss. I'm taking my own boss. My boss is this man or this lady. I don't want you, Hashem, as my boss. So he represents the ultimate in prikasoil. And we know also, you see in some of his miras, it says, Hane kalben da chatzifin. You see that the midah of the dog is chutzpah. What does it mean, chutzpah? That I am rejecting you as my boss. You are not my boss. You, Rabbeinu Shloim, don't rule me. I am ruled by another. I am ruled by man. We also see, it's brought down in Sefer Karnayim, which has a pirush on it from Shemshon Astropolia. It says there is this thing called klipas klavim, and in order for Klal Yisrael to be able to leave Mitzrayim, zeicha to a geula, which was geulas Mitzrayim, yitzias Mitzrayim, the first thing they had to do was get rid of that thing that's called klipas klavim, which is the bad influence of the kelev. One of the ways we see the bad influence of the kelev, because the Chazal tell us, what does the dog always say? The dog always says, have. Give me, give me. He's always a taker. He's never a giver. That's considered one of the bad midas of the dog. There's also other things that are brought down. It says by Avraham Avinu, Vashem Beirach as Avraham Bakoil. What is Bakoil? So Pashtus, it means children and means the koyach habracha. The word kelev is the same osius as bakoil. They're both, bakoil is beis, kaf lamed, and kelev is kaf lamed beis. You see that the opposite of a bracha that Avraham Avinu got would be kelev. In other words, the kelev represents the opposite of a bracha. we also know that it says by a carbon that if there's anything that's possible in the Mizbeach, like Kelev Tashlicha Noisai. Another thing we see in Chazal, always it says, how do you judge if a food is roi to be eaten? You see if it's roi la'achilas Kelev. Some people say, greatest bracha. A dog never goes hungry because he eats anything. So really it's not like that. Because the fact that he eats anything shows that he's on the lowest madrega. The only thing that's on the lower madrega, possibly, is a nachash. Because the nachash eats afar, and afar is always in abundance. There's no lack of afar. So the nachash, conceivably, is the lowest madrega, when the madrega right above it would be the kelev. You also see, so you could ask a question. The nekudas, which we know represent certain midas by Hashem, the nekuda of a segel represents chesed. If the nekuda of a segel represents chesed, why does the kelev have two segels? Should have something else? Answer is that since the kelev is the ultimate bad, so by putting two segels underneath it, we are, so to speak, what we call mamtik esadin. We are sweetening the din that it should be tolerable. That's why we call it a kelev. There's also nachazach, just to add to it, that the word achal is gematria 51, and the word kelev is gematria 52. So in order for us not to be a kelev, we eat on a regular basis. But when we have that taiva and we're just eating the same taiva, we want that extra portion, then that 51 of achal becomes 52 of kelev, and so to speak, we're eating like a dog. Comes out, I would say this as a joke, that the only dog that's mutter to have is a hot dog. But we'll leave that on the joke side. So just in summary, as far as dogs go, dogs represent the ultimate klipa. They represent the chutzpah. They represent this midah that we want to always be pyragal. We want to throw off our midas of accepting Rabbeinu Shloim as our leader, master, owner. And the dog represents the opposite. In addition to that, many people will say, but my dog is so cute and so sweet, and how could you say that dogs are usher? Dogs shouldn't be had. And the answer is that they are disguising themselves as these cute little puppies, that we should love them and take care of them. And just like certain things everybody knows are bad influences on us, even though we don't see it or feel it, but the dog is one of the things that we don't see or feel. We think it's fine, but reality is it has a very, very bad influence. If you want to compare it to something, you could compare it to things that Rabbeinu Shalom told us are usher to eat. For example, just take pork as an example, take chazer, the Torah asked us to eat it. The Torah asked many, many foods for us to eat because they are considered tameh. And the reason why the Torah does not allow us to eat them is because since when we eat something, not only does it just go into our stomach, but it goes into our blood system and gives us energy. So it goes into every single part of our body, from our bottom of our toe to the top of our head. Therefore, we can never eat these things, because once it's in you, very difficult to get out. We could do tshuva on it, but still, that thing that we ate that's usher stays in us. Yes, we could get rid of it through tshuva, but that's a whole nother shvuz if it's the same or not the same as if you do tshuva. But the influence of the dog, even though it's not something physical, it's something spiritual, and therefore we definitely have to stay away from it. That's been negeya. And the reason I'm saying that is because it's all negeya to this vart of layecheratz kelev l'shaynai Pshat that the dog had to be quiet. In other words, Klal Yisrael had to get rid of this klipa, this negative influence of a dog, in order for them to be zeicha to the geula. Now, b'negeya Tu bshvat, there are many types of yichudim, of coming together, that we have in the Bria. The ultimate yichud is, you see, is when the Zach and the Keva come together, so they create a Shefa, they create a Vlad. There's another, that's the what we call Zayin V'Nuk, Duchra V'Nukva, that's Zach and the Keva. There's another, which is on a lower level, which is called Nashika, which is prat, that we exchange Ruach Beruach, as the Zayah says. There is another one which is called Chibuk, like you see, now Rizal brings down by Sukkah, that 2.5 walls of a Sukkah are kosher, which is as if Rebbeinu Shalom is hugging us with arm. Our arm is also 2.5 parts. You know, the upper arm, the forearm, and the hand itself is 2.5, like 2.5 walls with which we have a hug. There is a third type of yichud, which is called a betisha, which means, so to speak, to bang. In modern Hebrew, I think it means to kick. But when we bang one thing against another, is also a form of yichud, which creates a shefa. Question is, why does Tu b'Shvat dafka come out on Chodesh Shvat? If you take the word Shvat, it's Oisi is Ba Tash. And if you add a Yud K to it, which is Betisha, it comes out to Tu b'Shvat. What do we see from that? That why is it Negeya such a Betisha, Dafka in Shvat? Because since the Ilan, the tree, is bringing out Paris, it's bringing out a Shefa, but it's Guf Echad, it's one body. So Pshat is that the Zachar and the Nekeva, the male and the female, are in one body in the tree itself. So therefore it's not as strong as a Yichud of 2 Gufim. It's one Guf, so it's on a lower Madrega of a Yichud, of a Betisha. Therefore, Dafka comes out of Chodesh Shvat, Kneged Loshen Batash, and it's also Betisha of Yud K, as we said, is Tu b'Shvat. That's why Dafka comes out in Tu b'Shvat. Now, question is, why are we celebrating Rosh Hashanah L'Ilanos? Why is there a Machlokes Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel? Beis Shammai holds that its only reference is La'asid Lavai, because how do you know that? Because everything that we La'asid Lavai we paskin like Beis Shammai, and Ba'elam Hazeh we paskin like Beis Hillel. So we see that Beis Shammai is always holding everything al Shem Ha'asid for the future. So therefore Beis Shammai holds that Rosh Hashanah L'Ilanos comes out on Aleph, because Aleph is number 1, and there's nothing before number 2. So everything that happens on number 1 is a reference to the future. It's not a reference to the past. Mashiach Beis Hillel, who says it's in the middle. If it's in the middle, it's like Haya V'Yiyeh, past, present, future. Goes in the middle of, let's say, if the 30 days in the month and it's day number 15, which is what Tu b'Shvat is. So you have days beforehand and you have days afterwards. So, l'mashal, to a person, he acts a certain way beforehand and he acts a certain way in the future. He could always fix himself. We want to be in the middle, that we have opportunities to fix ourselves and plan for a better future. That's the Shita of Beis Hillel, and that's why Beis Hillel holds that a dafka would be on Tu b'Shvat, as opposed in this 15th day of the month, as opposed to the first day of the month. And just as a side note, you see also that every fruit that the Rebbeinu Shalom brought into the Bria, Rebbeinu Shalom made it with all his majesty, that you have a layer of protection on the outside, which is called a klipa, a peel. Some fruits have thicker peels, some fruits have thinner peels. A nectarine, let's say, has a very thin peel. An orange has, say, very thick peel. I used to hear Rabbi Avigdor Miller always say, you look at a fruit and you see Mamash Neflas HaBoirei, how he protected it from the outside, and inside he put the seed in order that you could keep on planting and make new ones, and inside it also, as well as the flesh for eating sustenance of this existing fruit. So you see two things from it. First of all, you could be mamish makir, recognize the Rebbeinu Shalom's godless of how he created a simple fruit which you all take for granted. And at the same time, we also realize that there is a thing called a klipa, which is a negative thing. Sometimes it's a protection, but usually most of the peels are not meant to be eaten. Some can be, but most of them are not meant to be eaten. And sometimes the fruits themselves are color-coded. For example, you have a watermelon. It's color-coded, what's edible and what's not edible. You have a green outside, not edible. A white rind right inside it, not edible. A red, pink inside, very edible. So Rebbeinu Shalom created with all his glory, he created Paris with a system. As you know, everything in the Bria is created with a system. Therefore, it's a big mitzvah to be mechaven on Tu bshvat to the greatness of Rebbeinu Shalom and to thank him for all the fruits that he gave us. And also remember that Parshas B'Shalach always comes out with same time as Tu b'Shvat, which has in it Parshas Haman, which is the Parsha of Parnasa. So may we all be zeicher to a Parnasa taiva, and it'll all come through our recognition of the Rebbeinu Shalom feeding us and us davening to it.